Alright, I know I said that we were going to get into some rigging here, but no, my mouse isn't moving. Alright. As I was going through all the different mesh pieces, I noticed there was a few things that I just want to take the opportunity to talk about a little bit. It gives me a chance to introduce some more topics here. You can see that these front tires are separate meshes, or separate objects, but the rear tires are actually one piece. So if I move them, you see both move together. Just for consistency, sometimes when you're rigging, you just gotta make on the fly decisions like this. So I'm going to select one face, Control L, and P to separate by selection. And now I've got 4 separate tires, and I'll actually go through here and rename these later. But a lot of different decisions that you're gonna need to be, need to make on that. And one other thing I want to talk about is as far as, since we've got so many different pieces that make up this car, I really like to start thinking in terms of what's a hard surface item and what is an item that needs to actually be deformed in an organic way. And I know a lot of things can be kind of ambiguous. For one, the seat. Seats are generally soft, but for this purpose, I'm really going to treat them as a hard surface item. But what I want to focus in on is this shift knob down here. Take a look at this. You can see this top knob and the shaft is obviously going to be a hard surface item. But this mesh was actually created where this lower shroud piece, it's usually made of leather, and it's going to be an organic type of material, and it's going to need to be deformed in an organic way. So I'm just going to make a quick decision right now. I'm going to separate that lower shroud, select everything with Control L, P, separate by selection. That way, now after I split this mesh here, I can treat this upper piece as a hard surface. I can just parent it directly to a bone, and I can use an armature deform and weight painting to make this deform in an organic way. So that's basically what I want to talk about, is just start getting a plan together for how I'm going to deform my meshes and how I'm going to move my meshes in my rig. So let me do this to the e-brake too, which was set up in a similar way. Now I've got a separate hard surface handle and a lower hard surface base piece, and now a deformable shroud mesh here. Alright, one other thing I wanted to talk about. Let me zoom into this gauge set here. Go to edit mode, make sure everything is selected. I want you to look up here and notice that these relatively small and simple pieces, right now their face count is 34,000, almost 3,500 faces, and that's actually quite a bit. If I select the seats, for instance, and I select everything in there, their face count is at 1,300. So for a relatively small piece, this is actually a pretty dense mesh. And when you're rigging, sometimes you just have to kind of make a decision if you want to go ahead with the mesh that you have, or if you want to take the time to stop and retopologize the mesh and simplify it. The reason this is I'm bringing the topic up is the more vertices that the armature has to move, the less efficient it's going to be, and the more work it's going to have to do. And when we're animating and things and trying to play back stuff in our scene, this higher polygon count is actually going to really reduce our frame rate, and that can have an effect on our animations at the end. So like I said, this is actually a pretty simple mesh, and you can see that it's pretty dense on the top. There's no right or wrong answer for this. Sometimes you want a dense mesh like this if you're going to do extreme close-ups and you want that detail, but a lot of times you can actually use other methods like subsurf modifiers and edge split and things like that, where you can take a very simple low poly mesh and make it look like a high poly mesh. Let me show you one other example here. We tab into edit mode of this, select this knob. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. If we were going to do some close-ups, we might want this density and we might need that density to make that detail come across. But there's also some ways where we can fake that, and that's kind of a decision. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer for you. You just have to kind of make it for yourself. We could do a very simple cylinder and actually use other techniques like applying bump maps and normal maps and things like that to take a low poly object and make it look like a high poly object. So I just wanted to point that out. It's something you need to make a decision on. Usually when you're rigging, you kind of got to be a good evaluator of mesh and topology, and topology is actually a pretty big a subject, and one that I'm not going to get too heavily into, but there's a lot of good resources available. You can go to blenderartist.org and ask questions if you want to know if your topology looks decent, or cgcookie.com, the community there, they've got a lot of helpful people. Just ask questions. If you don't know, ask if you think, is this mesh suitable for rigging? How can I lower the polygon count? How can I fake that detail? But the reason I'm bringing it up is, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. But the more vertices that we need to move, or have the armature move, the less efficient it's going to be. So you can actually kind of fix a lot of problems before they become problems once again, and that's kind of the whole focus of this first part of the tutorial, to get to that state. So once again, I'm going to go through and I'll probably separate some of these objects. I'm just going to make the executive decision, whatever is going to make it easier for me, like I did with these tires, and I probably won't retopologize anything. I'm just going to leave everything as it is, as the original author had it, and go from there.